following the threads of life. Over the years, I've learned to pay real close attention to the books that are gifted to me, especially from people that I know and respect, people who are real leaders, who are readers, who are thinkers, people who know the literary landscape, people who recognize that when they stumble upon a treasure, that they have a certain obligation to share it with the people in their lives that they really care about. People that are passionate about discovering hidden gems that are buried on the long tail of the Amazon shelves. Today I want to tell you a story about such a book. The title is called Through God's Eyes by Phil Bolsta. One of the young men that I coach, a young man named Joe Allen, was on a flight from Minneapolis to San Diego on his way to one of our conferences. Phil sat next to Joe. The two of them engaged in a conversation. And isn't that where all new opportunities begin? It's engaging in a conversation with a stranger. Well, during that conversation, Joe told Phil that he was coming to San Diego to meet with me. Phil was familiar with my work. We lived in the same town. So Phil said to Joe, I would really love to meet Joe Stump. So Phil gave a copy of his book, Through God's Eyes, to Joe. And he said, would you give this to Mr. Stump? And isn't this how life works? The universe takes care of the how. Our job is just to be present in the now. And because Joe and Phil are present to the moment, they engage in a conversation. They find a thread. Joe gives me the book. It's 550 pages. It's an 8x11 book. It looked like it needed its own airline ticket just to get there. And Joe shares with me how Phil and him met on the plane and how Phil wanted me to have a copy of his book. Joe looked at me and said, this book was meant for you. So the next day I woke up and I immediately sent Phil an email thanking him for the gift. Then I went to Amazon and I bought 20 copies, one for each of my inner circle members. My inner circle are the 20 closest friends and clients who I've been meeting with for several years, and they're also the recipient of every new book that I discover. About 30 days after my box of Through God's Eyes books arrived, I invited all my inner circle members down to Encinitas for a day of masterminding, and I invited Phil to come and join us for lunch. Phil showed up. It was amazing. He shared with us his story about how he wrote this book, and he did it in an elegant, beautiful way. He answered questions for us, and then he signed everybody's book. For me, this is an inspiring example of following the threads of life. Hey, let's work this out. What becomes possible when you view every gift you give as the start of a thread that could lead to amazing new opportunities for you? Now listen carefully. What becomes possible when you view every gift you give as the start of a thread that could lead to amazing new opportunities for you? 25 to 30 words. Begin. Well done. Imagine the thread. Phil sits next to Joe. They engage in a conversation. Phil gives Joe a copy of his book, Through God's Eyes. Joe gives me a copy of the book. I give a copy of the book to each of my 20 Inner Circle members. And now, those 20 Inner Circle members have given away hundreds of copies of Through God's Eyes to their friends, their family members, and their clients. That's the thread of life. Imagine when you give your gift away, it begins the thread of life. I'm Joe Stump, your guide by your side, and this is a 1-minute private workout. Have an amazing and fascinating day following the threads of life.